Sometimes, the most terrifying questions are the ones we never dare to ask out loud. It happens late at night, when the house is silent, when the wind hums softly against your window, when the noise of the world fades, just enough for something deeper to emerge. And suddenly, it creeps in, that unspoken question, chilling in its honesty. What happens to the souls of the truly evil after they die? Not the ones who made a mistake, not the ones who slipped once and tried to make it right, but those who orchestrated horrors, those who left trails of blood, fear, and silence behind them. Murderers, rapists, dictators, people like Adolf Hitler. Where are they now? Are they burning somewhere in eternal fire? Or have they simply vanished? Is there justice waiting for them on the other side? We don't talk about it because we fear the answer. And yet, Edgar Cayce, one of the most mysterious visionaries of the 20th century, known as the Sleeping Prophet, dared to look. While in trance, Cayce accessed realms few dare to imagine, and what he found wasn't hell. It was something else. Something far more disturbing. He said, "The soul does not die, not even those we don't want to call human." So, what if there is no fiery pit? What if there is no punishment? What if the truth is that the soul must face itself? Every horror, every scream, every tear it caused lived again through the eyes of those who suffered. And here's where it gets even darker, because not every soul is ready to face what it has done. Some resist, some hide, and some get stuck between this world and the next. And the scariest part, they might be closer to us than we think. If you're still with me, this isn't random. You were meant to hear this. So stay close, because what comes next will challenge everything you thought you knew about the soul, about evil, and about yourself.
What if the greatest judgment doesn't come from some divine courtroom, but from a mirror? Not the kind you hang in your bathroom, but a mirror of the soul. One that reflects not your face, but your entire life. Edgar Cayce spoke of this place, a realm after death where no mask can be worn and no lie can survive. He said the soul, upon leaving the body, is not greeted by flames or angels, but by itself. And in this mirror, you don't just watch your life like a movie, you feel it. Every single moment through the eyes of everyone you've touched. The laughter you caused, the comfort you gave, but also the pain, the betrayal, the fear. Imagine this. A man who abused his children doesn't just see the bruises. He feels the fear in his child's heart, the helplessness, the silent tears cried in the dark. And he can't look away. There are no justifications in this place. No, I was under stress. No, I didn't mean it. Just the raw, unfiltered reality of impact. It's not meant to punish. It's meant to awaken. Cayce said, "This is not hell. This is experience. The soul must feel what it once made others endure. It's easy for us, the living, to judge, to wish revenge upon those who've hurt others. But here, judgment isn't handed down, it's embodied. And that's far more powerful. Some souls crumble in this mirror. Others finally begin to understand. This is why, according to Cayce, the afterlife isn't a place of fiery torment. It's a process, a deeply personal spiritual confrontation with the truth of who you really were. And maybe, just maybe, that's what real justice looks like. You see, in life, it's possible to lie to others, to even lie to yourself. But not here. Here, the soul is stripped bare. And in that bareness comes either shame or growth, or sometimes both. And perhaps that's a lesson for us right now. Because if we're all destined to face this mirror one day, maybe we should start living as if we're already standing in front of it.
Not every soul is ready for the mirror. Some look and turn away. Some simply refuse to see. You see, Edgar Cayce believed that after death, the soul doesn't automatically ascend or descend. It moves into a kind of in-between space, what he called a stuck level. Not heaven, not hell, but something far more haunting, a fog between worlds. This happens when the soul still clings to pride, to control, to ego, especially souls who, in life, were consumed by power, who destroyed, manipulated, dominated. These souls can't accept what they've done, and because they can't, they don't move on. Imagine a person standing in front of a mirror that shows them the full truth of their life, but they shut their eyes. They scream, "This isn't me!" and they stay stuck. Not in a place exactly, but in a state of isolation, confusion, torment. Cayce said, "Some souls wander in this state for centuries, unable to accept their guilt, unable to let go of their ego." And maybe you've felt this energy before. You walk into a room and the air feels off, heavy, unexplainably tense. You feel like something unseen is watching, something lost. Or maybe you've met someone in life who feels like a walking storm. They're always angry, but no one's sure why. They push people away, yet seem desperate not to be alone. Perhaps their soul is still stuck, still resisting the mirror. There's a lesson in this. Pain doesn't always mean punishment. Sometimes it's just the soul's way of saying, "I'm not ready yet." But no soul stays stuck forever. Cayce believed that even these wandering spirits, no matter how lost, still carry a spark of divine memory, and that one day, in one lifetime, they'll open their eyes. They'll whisper, "I understand," and that will be the beginning of their healing. Are you ready to explore what happens when the soul returns to earth, not for glory, but to feel the pain it once caused? Then let's go deeper into part 4, the law of return. Not hell, but balance.
So, if not punishment, then what? If there's no eternal fire, no wrathful God waiting with thunder in his voice, then how does justice come? According to Edgar Cayce, it comes through something much more subtle, but far more precise: balance. He called it the law of return, a cosmic law older than time. It's not fueled by revenge, but by reflection. It doesn't seek to destroy, but to teach. Cayce said, "Everything we do returns, but not always instantly." Imagine dropping a pebble into a still pond. You don't see the ripples hit the other side right away, but they always do. Now imagine this on a soul level. A man who lived his life abusing power, causing pain. He may not feel the consequences immediately after death, but when he returns, when his soul is reborn, the echoes return. He may find himself born into a life of fear,
perhaps into poverty, perhaps as a child rejected by his parents, or as a victim of violence himself. And it's not revenge, it's resonance. It's the universe offering the soul an opportunity to walk in the shoes of those it once hurt, to feel the very heartbeat it once silenced. There's a story, quiet but powerful, of a man who had recurring dreams. In them, he saw war, not as a soldier, but as someone giving orders, cold, brutal, calculated. He couldn't understand why these images haunted him, until one day, in a moment of deep reflection, he felt it. The guilt, the pain, and a sense that perhaps he was remembering a life before this one. It changed him. He became a peace activist. The law of return isn't about condemning us. It's about giving us the chance to become more than who we were. But here's the catch. Not every soul accepts the lesson. Some resist, some repeat. And that's when the spiral continues, life after life, until the soul finally says, I get it now. I feel what I made others feel. That's not hell. That's the beginning of healing. And so we ask, what happens when a soul refuses to learn, when it returns but only to repeat the same shadows? To answer that, we move into part 5, repeating darkness when the soul fails its lesson.
Sometimes the lesson is offered. The pain is mirrored. The chance to grow is right there, waiting. And yet the soul turns away, again and again. Edgar Cayce warned of this, that not all souls embrace the law of return with humility. Some resist, cling to their ego, refuse to feel what they once made others endure. And so they repeat, not because they're being punished, but because they're choosing not to see. Cayce described it as a loop, a karmic spiral where the soul keeps circling the same mountain, lifetime after lifetime, but never climbs it. Imagine someone born into hardship, not once, but many times. They face addiction, broken relationships, violence, betrayal. Yet, instead of asking, what can I learn? They ask, why is life so cruel to me? They stay angry, bitter, blaming the world. And that's how the cycle continues. The soul repeats the same patterns until it gets tired, exhausted, until the pain becomes too heavy to carry. That's when the shift might begin. Cayce once said, the soul drives itself into a dead end until it finally surrenders. There's a kind of surrender that isn't weakness. It's the beginning of wisdom. A man once said he spent most of his life sabotaging everything good: jobs, relationships, his own health. He thought he was cursed, until one night in rehab, something cracked open. He remembered flashes of cruelty, not in this life, but something deeper. He didn't fully understand where it came from, but for the first time, he didn't run from it. That was the start. You see, healing doesn't begin with answers. It begins with willingness. And until that spark ignites, the soul is like a record stuck on the same note, playing suffering on repeat. But here's the beautiful truth. Even after 1,000 lifetimes, the soul still gets to try again. Because spiritual law is not about punishment. It's about possibility. The question is never, have you failed too many times? The real question is, are you ready now? So what happens when a soul, after refusing the mirror and repeating the lesson, does something even more unexpected? What happens when it tries to come back and touches the living? That's where we head next, into part 6, the dangerous drift, when dark souls interfere with the living.
What happens when a soul is stuck for too long? When it refuses the mirror, when it won't surrender, when lifetime after lifetime it chooses denial. Edgar Cayce believed that these souls don't just float quietly in the background. Some of them begin to drift, not in anger, not always with intention, but in confusion. And when they drift, they sometimes find their way to us. Not in the way movies tell us. This isn't The Exorcist or some horror film. This is far subtler and much more real. Cayce explained that a wandering soul, especially one heavy with unresolved energy, can attach itself to someone living. Not to possess, but to lean on, like a drowning person reaching for anything that floats. And who do they reach for? Not the strong, not the grounded, but the ones who are open, emotionally raw, spiritually fragile, young people, the grieving, those in deep depression or fear. Because those moments when our guard is down are when our energetic field is most exposed. Cayce said, "It is not evil that enters, it is pain that seeks a doorway. And when it finds one, strange things can begin to happen. A sudden shift in personality, a gaze that feels unfamiliar, outbursts of aggression with no explanation, a lingering sadness that doesn't feel like your own." A mother once shared that after her teenage son went through a traumatic breakup, he became almost unrecognizable. He would stare at nothing for hours. Animals avoided him. His laughter stopped. Therapy helped, but what truly moved something was a simple spiritual practice: daily grounding, prayer, and intentional light work. And over time, he came back. So what's the lesson? We must understand that not all heaviness we carry is ours. Sometimes we're holding energy that doesn't belong to us. This isn't superstition. This is energy hygiene. And it starts with awareness. You don't need to be afraid, but you do need to be conscious. Because the best protection isn't fear, it's light. The more we anchor ourselves through prayer, breath, intention, the less space there is for anything lost to hide in us. Because even the darkest soul doesn't want to destroy. It just wants to be found. But what if, instead of harm, that drifting soul begins to heal through you? What if your pain, your empathy, your light is the very thing that begins their redemption? That's where we're headed next, into Part 7, The Healers in Disguise, when darkness returns as light. Not all souls that have done great harm are lost forever. Some return, but not to destroy. This time, they return to heal. Edgar Cayce shared something beautiful and unexpected, that even the darkest souls, those who have caused deep pain, can one day choose a new path, not out of guilt, but out of understanding. You see, once a soul fully experiences the suffering it once caused, once it looks into the eyes of its victims, not with defense, but with humility, something begins to shift. That same soul in a future life may return, not as a tyrant, but as a caregiver, not as a manipulator, but a voice for justice, not as a taker, but as a healer. Cayce believes this is one of the universe's greatest mysteries, that darkness can be recycled into light. And you've probably met these people. They carry an unusual depth. They listen differently. They help not for praise, but because they feel something ancient stirring inside them, a quiet fire, a silent knowing. There's a woman who spent her early years in and out of shelters, abuse, neglect, isolation. But as an adult, she became a trauma counselor, not out of obligation, but because something in her understood pain in a way books could never teach. She once said, "I don't know why, but I feel like I've been on both sides of suffering." Maybe she has. Maybe her soul once stood where the abuser stood, and now, through this life, she's restoring the balance. This is the quiet justice Cayce spoke of, not loud, not televised, but real. Because true healing doesn't shout. It shows up quietly, in service, in kindness, in the decision to not pass the pain forward. Here's the deeper truth. Some of the most compassionate souls walking among us may carry the memory of having once done harm. And it is because they've known that darkness that they now fiercely protect the light. That's the power of spiritual transformation. Not just escape from karma, but the decision to become its opposite. So if you've ever wondered why someone gives so much, why they love so deeply, why their presence feels like a shelter in the storm, it might be because they remember what it was like to be the storm. And now we face a more unsettling question. What happens when a soul refuses to heal so long that it doesn't just stay stuck, but begins to fall apart? Let's move gently into part 8, Fragmented Souls, the true meaning of spiritual hell.
There's a place not marked on any map, not made of fire, not filled with demons, but it's more terrifying than anything our myths have imagined. It's the place where a soul no longer remembers who it is. Edgar Cayce warned of this. He didn't call it hell, not in the way religion paints it, but he described something darker, a disintegration of consciousness. A soul that has rejected growth, life after life. A soul that refuses every chance to reflect, to feel, to evolve. Eventually, it begins to fall apart. Not vanish, but unravel. He said, "There is no absolute disappearance, but there is disintegration, a return to chaos." Imagine a beautiful mosaic. Each piece wants a memory, a purpose, a thread of meaning, but now dropped from a great height, shattered, still existing, but no longer whole. This is what Cayce meant. When a soul has gone so far into denial, so deep into self-inflicted isolation, it begins to lose shape. What remains is not a person, but fragments of pain, aggression, confusion, circling in chaos without identity. And yes, these fragments can still reincarnate, but they do not return as clear vessels of experience. They come back as broken, volatile energy, easily overwhelmed, easily triggered, sometimes dangerous. We see this sometimes in extreme cases of violence, where the person seems to act without remorse, without reason, as if something inside them is missing. Perhaps it is. Perhaps they are not evil in the way we imagine, but simply shattered, and dangerous because they no longer know who they are. But even then, Cayce said, a spark can still be reignited through pain, through kindness, through the very fact of life. Even in the deepest spiritual hell, a moment of grace can slip in, a song, a tear, a stranger's compassion, and suddenly something ancient stirs. One piece finds another, and the mosaic begins, however slowly, to rebuild. So the message here isn't fear. It's a gentle reminder. What we refuse to face doesn't disappear. It fractures. And what is fractured, if left unattended, can hurt others without ever meaning to. The lesson: tend to your soul, own your pain, because fragments don't heal themselves. They need presence, they need love, they need time, and maybe they need you. Because what if your light, your grounded presence, is the very thing that helps call a broken soul home? And that brings us to something deeper still. Part 9, Redemption Begins with You, the Power of Prayer and Light.
We often think redemption is something grand, something only saints or angels can offer, something far from our ordinary lives. But Edgar Cayce taught something radically different, something quiet, yet profoundly powerful. He believed it begins with you. Yes, you, in your everyday life, in the way you carry yourself, in how you pray, and how you love. Cayce once said, "Every person is like a note in a great musical composition. When you live in truth, your vibration spreads, whether you speak or not. Your light matters. Your energy affects the room you walk into. Your kindness, no matter how small, ripples further than you think." And this isn't just about the living. Cayce believed that souls stuck between worlds, those lost in guilt, pain, or confusion, are drawn to light, to your light. Not because they want to harm you, but because they are reaching for something they no longer remember how to find. He spoke of moments when a soul hovering on the edge of spiritual collapse is suddenly touched, not by punishment, but by an unseen hand of compassion. That hand might be yours, and it often begins with something as simple as prayer, not scripted words, not ritual for show, but honest, quiet connection. A prayer that doesn't say, "Punish them," but instead whispers, "Help them see, help them remember." There's a story of a woman who, after learning about these teachings, began praying each night, not for herself, but for anyone in the world who felt forgotten. She didn't know their names, but she believed someone, somewhere, needed that light. Months later, she wrote in her journal that something inside her felt different, lighter, more connected. She hadn't saved the world, but maybe she'd helped one lost soul take one step toward the light. And that's enough. Because redemption doesn't require you to fix everything. It only asks that you remain open, that you keep your heart soft, even when the world makes it hard. That you remember the darkest souls were once light too, and they are not beyond return. Cayce said, "If we pray only for those we love, there is no heroism in that. But if we pray for those we fear, that is already an act of love, and it changes everything." So yes, your love matters, your light matters, even your silent prayers matter. You may never know who felt your energy, you may never see the change it sparked, but somewhere, in the unseen world, a soul paused, turned, and whispered, "I'm not alone." But what happens to the souls that never turn back? Those who reject light so long they begin to forget they were ever part of it. To close this journey, let's explore one final truth. Part 10. The final question: can evil truly be transformed?
So after all this, we arrive at the final question. Can evil truly be transformed? Not masked, not silenced, but changed at its very core. It's a question that haunts many of us, because deep down, we want to believe in justice. We want to believe that those who do great harm will pay for it.
But we also want to believe in something more: hope. Edgar Cayce walked that line between justice and mercy. He didn't deny the weight of evil. He didn't minimize the damage it causes. But he did say something radical. There is no disappearance, but there is disintegration. And then he offered the most unsettling truth of all, that even the most terrifying soul, even someone like Hitler, will one day be given another chance. Not because they deserve it, not because they're forgiven, but because the soul is part of a system that doesn't destroy. It transforms. That transformation may take lifetimes. It may involve unimaginable pain, loss, and reflection. It may begin as a whisper of guilt in the middle of a quiet life, or a sudden tear that comes out of nowhere but carries ancient sorrow. And sometimes it begins because someone like you, refused to answer hate with hate. You might wonder, but aren't there souls that never change? Yes. Cayce believes that some souls resist so long, so completely, that they begin to fragment, to forget, to lose themselves. But even then, he said there is a spark, buried deep, almost gone, but not gone. And it only takes one moment to awaken it. One act of unexpected kindness, one lifetime lived in service, one prayer that says, "I don't understand you, but I still send you light." You see, transformation doesn't always look glorious. Sometimes it looks like a man choosing not to hurt his child the way his father hurt him. Sometimes it looks like a woman staying alive just one more day so her soul doesn't forget what hope feels like. And sometimes transformation begins when we stop asking, "Do they deserve a second chance?" and start asking, "What would it take for them to remember who they really are?" Because in the end, as Cayce believed, all souls are trying to return to the source. Some run, some crawl, some break into 1,000 pieces first. But even the darkest night holds a memory of light. And maybe, just maybe, your light is what helps them find it again.
If you've made it here, to the very end of this journey, then maybe, just maybe, you were meant to. Maybe something in your soul already knew that the world isn't black and white, that evil isn't always just evil, that behind the shadows there is pain, there is forgetting, and sometimes there is a cry for help. Edgar Cayce didn't offer easy answers, but he offered something deeper, a reminder that light is not the absence of darkness, it's the courage to face it. And you who are listening now, you carry that light. So hold it, protect it, and don't be afraid to let it shine, even when the world grows dim. Because sometimes your presence, your prayer, your empathy might be the one thing that helps a soul remember who they are. Even if you never see it, even if they never thank you. Transformation doesn't always shout. Sometimes it happens in silence, in the quiet ripple of energy you send into the world, with your thoughts, your choices, your compassion. So here's what I ask. If this video stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Share it with someone who needs to hear that no soul is too far gone. Leave a comment with your reflections, your questions, your hope. And if you feel called, subscribe, not just for more content, but to stay connected to this field of thought, of light, of healing. Because this isn't just a video. It's a lighthouse, and maybe, just maybe, you were meant to help it shine. Thank you for being here. Until next time, stay grounded, stay open, and never underestimate the power of the soul to come home.